Hey, before we talk to these illustrious dads up here, I want to just talk about a couple myths out there. And one is that every man is supposed to be a grill master. Let me ask you this. How many of you men you'd say, hey, you are an acclaimed grill master. Man, you are good at grilling. Look at that. Not as many as I thought. How many of you men think that you've been handed that role, but you're not really that great? Good. How many of you, because that was not half and half, so how many of you don't know you're men yet? I tell you, that's something that I know that was pushed upon me from my beautiful wife, Paula, early on in our marriage, that it was time to cook. We were going to grill. All right, honey, here's the chicken and stuff like this. You grill. I says, well, you do all the cooking. And she is an excellent cook. And so, I mean, why just because it goes outdoors, so all of a sudden do I have to become the cook? But she said, that's what men do. So I have tried over the years, and I've gotten actually better in the last, 4 years. I've got 2 years. She said 2 years. I've gotten better at it, becoming a little bit more of a grill master. But I think that's just a myth that men have to grill, be the grillers. I just don't agree. And if you are a man and you do that, good for you. You're awesome. Another myth that I want to dispel is about this thing about men crying, about emotions. Real men don't wear pink. Real men don't cry. I think the older I get, the softer I get, because I cry during movies and stuff. But still, when I do cry, I don't want anybody to know. I don't want Paula to know, my kids to know. And Riley always turns around, are you crying? No, and it's just, isn't it weird, though, how we men don't want to let that side of us be seen by anybody that we would cry. But that's a myth. It's okay to have emotions. Isn't that right, man? It's just don't let emotions run you. But emotions are a good thing. So now that we got that down, let's talk about some of these things with the guys. I don't think there's anybody in this room that will doubt the value of moms in the home. Hello, thank you. I got one. Thank you. I don't think anybody here will dispel that down. But listen, for eons and eons, dads, we take a back seat to mom. If you look at our days. This is proven. This is not just what we've gathered here at CityGate Church, but this is a proven fact that more kids go to church with their moms on Mother's Day than with their dads on Father's Day. It's just proven. More Mother's Day cards are sold by far than Father's Day cards. More money, this is your facts, more money is spent on Mother's Day gifts than on Father's Day gifts. Again, just a fact. But men, I want to tell you today, those of you who are dads, you are important. You're valuable. Listen to this. Psychology today says this, that fatherhood turns out to be a complex and unique phenomenon with huge consequences for emotional and intellectual growth of children. It has a huge impact. One leading child psychologist said this, that fathers and mothers' loves are quantitatively different. And it's important that kids receive both of these loves. One parenting expert said this, because of the distinct differences between men and women, by 8 weeks, get this, by 8 weeks, an infant can tell the difference between their mother's and their father's interaction with them. By 8 weeks, a child can tell that. And we don't find this at couples. Oftentimes they'll sit, okay, well, you teach the kids this, you teach the kids this. But it's by virtue of the way that God has wired us that we teach kids, just again, the differences, again, between men and women. So I want to briefly, before I talk to these guys, I want to briefly share with you some of the values of men in the family. Now, I know some of you that know me think that he's leading up to a joke, but I'm serious. I'm serious right now. But by sheer experience, childs learn the difference. Just by sheer experience, childs learn the difference between men and women and the different ways that men and women interact with other adults, the way that we interact with children. Normally I would see kids, get out of my yard, and Paula, come get lemonade, come get cookies, stuff like that. We just, interact differently. And this is critical for children's development. Number 2 is this, dads play a different role. Dads play a different role, and they play differently. Dads tickle more, they wrestle more, they throw their kids in the air. Moms tell them, no, not so high. But dads tend to chase their kids, oftentimes as a scary monster. Children who roughhouse, listen to this, children who roughhouse with their parents or with their dads, they learn that biting and kicking and other forms of physical violence are not acceptable. Seriously, no, we're not going to do that, we're not going to bite. We teach those things. I remember, Hunter and Barrett, when they'd go up, when they were little bitty, they'd run up, get on the couch, and jump down on top of me. And then Hunter was, 15 and a half months older than Barrett, so he was a little bit faster, and so he could try to come and get in front of him. And then Barrett would sometimes get upset, and sometimes he would cry. All the time. And I would have to, so they learned fairness. No, it's Bear's turn. So again, we parents, again, dads, we teach those things. They learn self-control by being told, no, that's enough, settle down now. Again, we teach them that. And then when they don't, we turn that college ring or high school ring and pop them on the head, and they learn enough is enough, right, men? This one, fathers build confidence. You go to a playground and listen to parents with their kids. Who's yelling, who's encouraging the kids to swing higher, run faster, throw harder? And who's encouraging the kids, be careful, be careful? It's usually the dads are encouraging go, and the moms are kind of encouraging that. Moms protect where dads encourage, push the limits. Now listen to this, entering either one of these parent style by themselves is unhealthy. But we need that. We need that encouraging to push ourselves, and again, to be watchful, to be careful in those things. Number 4 is this. Fathers prepare their children for the real world. Now, understand, when I'm saying these things, this is not every home and every woman and every man, they do these things, but these are typically the roles that men take. Dads, involved dads help their children with the attitudes and their behaviors. They cause consequences. They learn from their dads that their bad behaviors and wrong attitudes will come with consequences in life. It's called life lessons. It's my specialty with my kids. If they remember 20% of the life lessons that I've told them over the years, they're going to make it in life. But listen, for instance, fathers are more likely than mothers to tell their children that if they're not nice, other kids won't want to play with them. Or if they don't do well in school, that they'll not go to a good college or get a secure job. Fathers help children prepare for reality and harshness in the world. When I was going over this with Paula, she said, I don't think that's it with us. Because I hated school, and when the kids say, I think I'm not going to go to school today or something like that, I say, okay. Paula says, no, you're not. You're going to school. So that role's a little bit reversed in our house, isn't it, Paula? Amen. Yeah. Here's the last one. Fathers provide a look at the real world. This is especially for daughters. Girls with involved fathers tend to have healthier relationships with the opposite sex because they learn from their fathers how proper men act towards women. They learn which behaviors are inappropriate. This builds emotional security and safety from exploitation of predatory males. So I'm telling you, dads, your roles are vital in the home with all seriousness. So let's talk to this esteemed panel up here today of men. There is almost 150 years of fathering experience on this stage today. So here's a question for you. Number 1 is, what do you enjoy most about being a father? Or you could answer it this way, what have you learned most about being a father? So what do you enjoy most, or what have you learned most about being a father? Let's just start down here on this end.
Well, I think,
yeah.
Can you hear me? Good? All right. It's got that, I keep saying the Appalachian translation through the microphone here. So I think what I enjoy most is the first, right? Or what I have enjoyed most is the first time they do something, the first time they throw a ball, they catch a ball, they hunt deer. I won't use the other term. Paul, Paul knows what I'm talking about. But the first time that they do those things, it's the times that they grow. And then I find myself looking at them from behind, right? I see them, how tall they're getting, and, when they get a new haircut and just how much they've changed. It's just a pride thing, I think, for me. It's being proud of who they are and who they're becoming, and the times that, they do something right without being told. I think that's just something that's just very special to me. But also the third one that I just remembered I had as well, when he comes and gets in my lap and you hear daddy and you hear those kind of things, it takes all the other worry and the troubles that you're going through, or the stress or whatever. It takes all that away because you just hear, hey, daddy, look at this, because they don't care about anything you're worried about, right? They just want to, throw a rock or whatever. So when they get up and they give you that hug and they say daddy, it's just awesome. So I think that's what I love most about it.
What about you, David?
I would say I enjoy them because they're just fun. They're kids, right? So it's great seeing them to grow up. I mean, you get them from their little baby. They're yours. They're your responsibility. They're yours. I mean, you can play with them, roughhouse with them. In my house, they say I'm the fourth kid. So I like having fun with them. But it's just amazing seeing them grow up throughout the years. You'll hear, they'll tell you, I say all the time, I remember when you were little. I wish you guys were little again here and there, just because it's fun. It's fun seeing them grow from little ones to adults. But also, I would say the big thing is it really helps me relate my relationship to God, because when I'm disciplining them, I can see how God wants to discipline us. when I'm trying to teach them stuff, I can see how God wants to teach us stuff. It really helps you understand the father-son relationship or the father-child relationship a whole lot more on a whole nother level if you look at it that way. And that helps you to raise your children the same way.
All right. Right?
Yeah. For me, the most enjoyable part, and I'm sure it'll change, but right now I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I just love playing the hero role. So no matter what I do, I can impress them, whether they just break a toy and I just throw some glue on it. They just look to me to provide whatever that need is. So it could be just getting a Frisbee off the roof of the house, but when they look at you and just realize, like, wow, you're amazing, I'm going to hold on to that for as long as I can, because I know that's going to change for me, but that's a super feeling right there. And then to your point, relating it to your relationship with God, your Heavenly Father, if I can play that role to them in the flesh now, I want them to always look to God for all their needs, because He can do much more than I can do. But for me, that's the most enjoyable part.
Awesome. All right. Dan?
Now, Frank, I'm in a different stage. My kids are our kids, Amy, 32, 30, and 28. We started very young, but it's really cool now because the kids are more in that friendship stage, and we have the chance to sit down. And I do enjoy, hey, remember when I taught you this when you were young? Yes, Dad, you're right. I hear that a lot more now than when they were 15, 16 years old, but just enjoying spending time with them now, watching how they interact with their spouses. They're all married. It's a glorious thing to see what we have built as a family.
Yeah, amen. I think one of the important things that I think all of these dads and probably most of you out there would agree with is it's just fun creating memories with your kids. Our kids got 2 in college now, and one's about to graduate, and then Riley will be a high school senior. Riley's kind of enjoying it because she thinks she's an only child now. So, one of our favorite places to go is in Destin, Florida. And it's a little ways to get down there, but we have some really great memories down there. And Riley's talking about, can we go down there this summer? And when we think about, Paul and I think about going down there, and again, we love being with Riley, but there's something about us that we want to do it as a family because they enjoyed that. And, ever done something by yourself, and even men, you're out, you go on a trip or something, and you see something, you think, man, I wish my wife were here. And you go something, you build special memories, and you want your family there. We spent a lot of money few years ago to go to Australia, and we knew that it was going to be a great expense to take the whole family there, but it's something that it was a memory that we wanted to create, and I think that's the best part of a dad is just looking back at memories that we have. And man, I'm just so thankful that I've got tons and tons and tons of photos that I'm always looking at. I'm constantly sending pictures to my kids of when they were little, just, hey, I'm looking at this and just enjoying them. They were so cute. All right. Number 2 is this. Which one of you guys, do any of you guys travel a lot? You travel a lot? Okay. Anybody else? All right. In the past. So this is really kind of geared towards you, but you guys feel free to answer it too. But after being away on business or maybe just working long hours, what's one of your favorite ways or your best ways to connect with your family or to reconnect with them after a long trip?
So mine's more working long hours. That's something I've just probably since 2011 that I've been into. But I think after the long hours, it's coming home playing rummy, something like that. They like to play cards, so it's getting back with them, maybe curling up on the couch with everybody there. I think just that moment to get back together after you've been away, it is hard to get back engaged, right? Because you've been somewhat out of the picture a little bit for a little while. So the things that they've done day in and day out, sometimes I don't even see them when they go to bed, and I'm out of the house early in the morning, so. Maybe when I come home on the weekend, it's time to, try to find out who they are again, so to speak, and just get back in touch with what they're like and what they found. All those things you miss out on when you are working long. So I think it's watching a movie and playing cards probably is what we do to kind of connect back again. So,
okay.
And I would say for me, just coming home, watching some TV, movies, playing games, or whatever it may be. I think it's easy when you work a lot of hours or you're out of town a lot, it's easy to want to come home and do your own thing and have some me time and just be away from it all. But I think you have to purpose to, ask. Like I try to ask, hey, what do you guys want to do? You want to do anything? You want to do this? Because, if they say, no, I'm good, then, hey, I get my me time. But if not, I get to spend some time with them. And I think that's important. You have to purpose. when I used to travel a long time ago in the past, I used to be out of town a lot. You know, I used to go to the restaurant every day after work, you know, going out to eat on expense account and so forth. When I come home on the weekend, you know, they want to go out to eat. It's like, man, I just went out to eat at restaurants all week. But it's not always about you. So instead of just always wanting to relax and do your thing, I think you have to make an effort. At least I try to make an effort to include them and see what they want to do as well.
Okay. Either one, you guys have something?
For me, it's just very similar with activity-based, whether it's games, board games, anything sports-related, or even watching a movie. The one thing that came to mind, though, for me to really connect with them is at night when we, again, 7 and 5, we're doing bedtime, so it's prayers, reading books, and I just ask them questions that kind of draws out I'll ask them questions that draws out what's on their mind. And you can imagine, you know, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old what they'll say to you. But those are the special times where I can really kind of find out what's going on in their mind and just listen to what it is and find out what those needs are. A lot of times it sets me up the next day where I have to do some crazy event because Daniel's like, I want to go to a real baseball field and play real baseball, and that's great, you know. But that's a special time for us to really reconnect if I'm gone for a period of time.
I have traveled quite a bit in my career, and when I came down to Burlington, I actually, for 2 years, my family lived north, and I would go about every other weekend. So 2 big things. We did a lot of eating. Loved to go out to restaurants and spend time and see what they had going on in their lives. And the other part, when I got home at 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday mornings and saw that the chores weren't done, or my son had got the riding lawnmower stuck in the same spot in the yard for 2 weeks and the grass was up to our elbows, we would have what I would refer to as family bonding time. I'd go out and mow the yard, then we would have to rake it. We mowed 5 acres. I would make the kids, and my wife would come out and join us, and we would have family bonding time raking the yard for the next day and a half. At that point, they're saying, Dad, isn't it time to leave again?
Yeah. Talking about creating great memories. All right, this next question, and I want you to understand, especially you dads out there, as I'm asking these questions, you think how you would answer these questions. But I need to set this next one up. I want to give a definition of a spiritual leader in the home. And here's the definition, is this: the daily modeling or remodeling process. So modeling or remodeling process of placing God at the center of what the family does and who the family is. So I want to read that one more time so you can understand. Here's the working definition of what a spiritual leader is in the home. It's a daily modeling or remodeling process of placing God at the center of what the family does and who the family is. And understanding what a spiritual leader is, it doesn't mean that you do all the religious responsibilities in a home. If you're a spiritual leader, you do all the devotions, you do all the praying, you do all the discipline, you do all the correcting using the Bible and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's being aware. It's being aware and taking the spiritual temperature of the family, of where the family is on a daily, sometimes weekly, and sometimes a monthly basis. And determining where we are collectively. Are we growing in our relationship with God? Are we stagnant in our relationship with God? Or, as the family, are we drifting away from God? And maybe because of our busyness. And again, the responsibility there, and if we've decided to find that we've, in our process of looking at that we're drifting away, then it kind of goes back to the definition again of the daily modeling or the remodeling process. If we recognize that we've drifted away, then it's a responsibility to, hey, we need to pull together. We need to do some things because God, in the home of a Christian home, God should be the center of everything that we do. So again, with that definition, the question is this: have you always been the spiritual leader in your home?
All right. I would say that I've always aspired to be the spiritual leader in my home. I think long-term vision for who we're going to be as a family and who we want to be as a family before God would be something I think that I've taken that responsibility to establish that. But I would be lying, my sweet wife over there. I would be lying if I said that I was always the spiritual leader, because there's those times where I take a dip, I get beat down, I get, I'm attacked, right? And I go through those times where it's the down times, and you don't feel like going up and praying with the kids, right? You don't feel like you got the right mindset to go up there and be like, God is awesome. He's going, and she's the one who steps in and is the one who props me up, and I'm so thankful that I have her to have that shared mindset. And I think that's why it's so important that we do become one when we're married, because, if I'm down, she's right there, and she's consistent in the same things that we say and believe. And I think although I've tried to establish who we want to be, I need her to represent that in the same way whenever I'm not there physically, or if I'm not there mentally or spiritually. And so I need that to encourage me and to encourage the kids when I'm not in that place, right? When I haven't pressed into God like I should have, or I haven't been reading myself and just really being filled up in the Spirit to be that leader. She's right there for that. So I'd like to say that I am, but I think it's the we that is the spiritual leader. And I'm thankful that she does let me lead whenever I am prepared to do so on a daily basis. So there you go.
Anybody else?
Well, I'm similar to Justin in the sense that Matrice and I have a kind of a dual role, in the sense that I'm the spiritual leader, in the sense that over the entire family, I pray over them, I watch over them, I set the vision for the family, I set the values, the morals, the standard per se. But Matrice my kids are homeschooled, so they've always spent their entire days with Matrice, day in and day out. So she's done a lot of the teaching, the one-on-one and so forth. Whereas I come in and I may, do an activity here or there, but it's always been a dual role for us where it's kind of been shared. But overall, I think in our family it's clear that, I set the vision, the tone, and that sort of thing. But again, they've had a lot of one-on-one with her. Now, could I have done a better job doing my one-on-one? I tried to do that when they were little, and I still do that to some extent today, but we can always do better. So I think that's the main focus. It's like kind of like Justin saying, you balance each other out, and you try to recognize and set, pick up where the other person is not, or if they're, what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Very, very similar in our household. Setting that tone of being that spiritual leader in our household, but during the day, our kids are homeschooled as well, and Heather's there, and she does a phenomenal job. And there's times where I can relate, where she will step in to help remind and lead me where we are, and I can't be more thankful enough for what you do for us and our family. But one of the things that I do, and I'll just share this with everyone, I make sure they understand. I come from an athletic background, a sports background, and one of the analogies I use for them at such a young age, it's you got to really break it down and be simple. And I think anytime you teach and you're learning something, that's always the best way to present that. So for them, I tell them, you're on God's team. You're on our team. Our name is above your head. You never want to lower that name. You represent our local church. You represent CityGate. You represent our family. And every decision you make, you're wearing that jersey at all times, and you're never going to take that off. And they really relate to that. So as long as that they understand that, it helps them to make every decision with the understanding that in our household, God comes first. He's guiding us. He sets the vision, and our family vision aligns with that. And it just really hits home for them to make them understand that. So to answer your question, yes, I would say that I would be that spiritual leader because I help set that tone.
For me, I definitely evolved in the spiritual leader early on in the marriage, and when the kids were little, it was really more about me. And going back to, like Frank, big into sports, all the way through college, still wanting to play games, especially early on in the marriage. My wife's an absolute saint, going to watch me still play football after college, and a lot of lost priorities. But as we got older and got more into the Word and actually getting back to church, early on we didn't go to church our first few years of marriage, and got back into church. We really started learning about the book of Ephesians, and I really enjoyed teaching that with our children, as far as honor your mother and father, wives, submit to your husbands. That's my favorite verse. And then husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church. So we spent a lot of time with our kids, really helping reinforce that area of respect and the role that the family has together.
Yeah. Amen. Good. I think all of you guys, I think we all up here admit the spiritual leader in the home. There's a difference between the leader and the head. And by call of God, men are called to be the head of the family. That's just God's call. But again, there's a shared leadership often with, especially with children, and thank God for that important role that the mothers play. And I think it's important to have that dual role. But I think that someone, and probably it's best, I think, when it's the dads, to be that one that keeps the spiritual temperature, that recognizes, hey, again, to keep Christ at the center. Are we drifting away, or is our schedule getting so busy that God's kind of getting out? So I think, men, that's a responsibility that we have as being head, that we monitor that. And again, as I said, that doesn't mean we do all the religious duties. I thank God for this spiritual impartation that Paula has brought in our family. So here's just a couple of things that I wrote down I thought were good to do to help keep that spiritual temperature there. Just a short devo or a prayer time, either sometimes in the morning works best for you, before school or at bedtime. Just something, again, to bring that attention to the awareness of God in their life, talking about messages that you heard in church, or maybe especially it's great if you've got small kids and they bring home papers from what they learned to talk about those things, to add that spiritual value. Or if they're older, if they're teenagers and they're in church with you, hey, this week Pastor Rich talked about, or whoever brought the message that week, they talked about this. How does that fit in our lives? And again, those are good topics, good things to talk about. This is a great thing, I think, to do with kids, is pause a movie and talk about what we just saw. Somebody like Dumbo. Now, should Dumbo have really jumped off that? And I'm just kidding about Dumbo. But, you're watching movies and stopping something that a kid did or somebody, an adult did in a movie, and was that good? Was that right? Sometimes kids can be mean. If we can point out to them, like in a movie where kids were not being nice to other kids, that's a great thing to bring into a conversation. And again, sometimes just stop and pray in the middle of stress. And it's good that our kids notice that, hey, things are kind of hot, things are kind of getting kind of crazy, and mom and dad seem to always bring it to prayer. So here's the next question. All right, you ready for this? Moms sometimes struggle with this thing called mommy guilt. Do you ever struggle with daddy guilt? We'll start down there this time.
Without a doubt, especially with all the travel, missing events the kids had, basically watching my wife raise the kids and feeling guilty about that, and putting all the burden responsibility on her. It's definitely went through that.
Okay.
Guilt-free. No, I'm just kidding. So,
Me too, brother.
yeah. Definitely, you travel or you're doing something for the first time and they're not there. You want them to be with you. I guess the most time I feel guilty is when there is some me time and I am out and about with, other guys or whatever. We're playing sports or doing something and they're not there. So I try to bring them with me as best I can. But most of the time I still feel guilty because they're just standing on the sideline going, Daddy, I want to play. I'm like, I brought you here because I'm playing soccer or volleyball or basketball. You just need to sit here and watch. Doesn't always work out. So, yeah, definitely feel some of that guilt at those times.
Okay, how about over here?
Yeah, I would say definitely so. You always have a feeling I could have spent some more time doing this, or spent some more time doing this, or I should have done that. And, I don't have regrets per se, but I have a lot of wishes. I wish I could have done a lot more or done a lot of things differently, or, should I have given them that much freedom? Should I have just made them come along with me, or had this teaching moment? So I have regrets, and that, not regrets. Remember, I don't have regrets, wishes. And so I have that type of guilt. But, my whole thing is you do the best you can. Don't beat yourself up, because the past is the past. Just do your best going forward, because that's all you can focus on. So.
This one's interesting because I actually was just struggling with something similar, but I didn't know it was called daddy guilt, and I actually had to Google what mommy guilt was. And so when I read that definition, I realized that what I was just describing to Emily was this form of daddy's guilt, and I think it's something that I'm sure everyone struggles with, because just being in society, you feel like that, even if they become the best wakeboarder out there, somebody's going to make you feel like they should have been doing skiing their whole life or whatever. I mean, so it's a challenge to feel like that you're wanting to, impress upon them something, and you work with them on something, or you try to spend time with them in this one area, and then sure enough, Satan's going to come and tempt you and guilt you and convict you of something, right, that you should have been working on this other thing or doing this other thing. So I absolutely experienced that. I think, again, the working late hours and stuff like that, it's tough when you miss out on certain things that they are learning or growing in or whatever. So I think it is a challenge for a dad who's especially, working and being outside the home, that you don't get to see everything. So I think you naturally feel this guilt, like, man, I wish I was there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I had to, sometimes I would feel challenged and had to rethink some things. Would I put more expectations on my kids because they were pastors' kids, or because I wanted them to do a certain thing as a Christian young man or a Christian young lady? And I think it it hurt me one time when I found out that at a camp, one of my children had in a group session had kind of they were talking about pressure and stuff like that, and they kind of began to tear up and cry, and said that they felt pressure because people at church thought that they should act a certain way as a pastor's kid, and they felt that pressure. And I think Paul and I had always purposed that we never wanted our kids, number one, we never wanted our kids to hate God because of the ministry, and never wanted to find myself preaching things here but living something different at home. So I think those are things that I always tried to be aware of. Now this next question, I gotta lead into this one. It's easy for moms and dads to get so wrapped up in your kids while they're growing up that you almost neglect to some degree your spouse, husband and wife, and oftentimes it's more the moms seem to be more prone to get wrapped up in the kid's life. So with this, here's the question. What is the best way? Now, we're going to ask this I'm going to get you guys out of anything. You're not talking to your wife. You're giving wives here a suggestion, okay? But what is the best way for a wife to show her relationship with her husband is more important than her relationship with her kids? And before they answer that, there may be some mom here today saying, well, they are. And I would say to you, well, they shouldn't be. The Bible says in Genesis 2:24, it says that a man shall leave his father and mother, and this would include a wife, shall leave their mothers and fathers and cleave unto their spouse, and the two shall become one flesh. We become one flesh with our mates, not with our kids. Kids do what? One day they shall leave their father and mother. And the sad thing is when parents put all their attention and all their working stuff into their kids, and then their kids up after, when did they leave? 30, 35 years of age? When they leave, then it's, hi, I'm Rich, and who are you, Paula? Nice to meet you, Paula. And then you begin your relationship. So it's important. So again, the question again, let me remind you what it was. What's the best way for a wife to show her relationship with her husband is more important than her relationship with her children? Let's start with you.
All right, I'll kick it off. So Heather's amazing with always putting me first, no matter what it is. But the one thing that really stands out to me that makes me feel like I'm being put first is if I'm talking, and then, again, they're 5 and 7, so they'll immediately start wanting your attention as soon as you take it away from them. But Heather will stop the conversation and look at them and say, Daddy's talking. It's time for you to be quiet and listen. And that is like the number one thing for me. Whether it's me calling her when she's at the house and I'm at work, she'll deliberately go outside, tell them, hey, I'm going on the phone with your dad. I need to speak with him. I need you to be quiet. And so she gives me that undivided 100% attention and always puts me first in that light. So,
Okay, Dan?
Same with Amy. She's always put me first. It's been a beautiful thing. But years ago, we were at a couples retreat, and one of the things that they brought up, it's kind of graphic and a little macabre, but they basically said that husbands, wives, if you're on an elevator with two of your children, and you open up the door, and there's a gunman sitting there with a gun, and he basically tells you, I've got 2 bullets, and I've got to kill one person, and the other ones can go. So it'd be basically husband, wife, and child on the elevator. Husbands, you have to make a choice. Wives, you have to make a choice. And what they explained to us was you have to choose. If the choice is one person dying, it has to be the child. You must always put your spouse before the children, and then your family will have the proper structure. But it was tough. It opened my eyes up as far as how I had to be more respectful to my wife and make sure I'm putting her ahead of my children and not getting caught in a lot of the battles that we see. But that was the one thing that really put it in perspective for me. That shocked me open.
Ouch, yeah. Okay.
I would say for me, what Matrice does a good job of is, I would say it's important that you always value your man's opinion, and also the key thing for a lot of women, especially when you're you're dealing with children all day is try not to try not to give your man the leftovers. You know, just like you don't want to give God your leftovers, you don't want to give your husband, or you don't want to give him your leftovers either. So.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I mean, it's so hard for both parents not to get fully absorbed, like you're saying. I mean, I fully can attest to what you're saying there, that just naturally happens. I feel like, especially for the mom, you know, from an early age, that every little beck and call, the child's cry or whatever, that they're there, and they kind of get trained in this mode of just going and addressing their needs constantly. And the husband kind of falls down the totem pole, so to speak. So I think it is a battle daily. I mean, little things that, you know, like plating, if one or another are making dinner, then plating the spouse's food first. Or, you know, Emily knows I like coffee in the morning, so she tries to remember to make a cup of coffee. But that wasn't always the case. She had something for them first, right? And it was just kind of those little things that I think shows she's thinking about me before she thinks about the children's needs. And I think there's just small things like that you can do on a daily basis. So,
Good. Here's a couple of things I thought were good to put into practice. And since this is Father's Day, we'll speak, of course, to the wives. Every now and then, write down some characteristic about your husband that you admire. And just put it in a note. Just all of a sudden, just someday, hey, man, I see this about you. You do this with the kids, or you do this, you're such a good provider, something that you admire about him, and send it to him. The second one would be this: ask your husband a couple times a year if there's anything that you can do to help him feel more important, to help him feel more valued and more respected. The third thing is pray for him on a regular basis. Amen? Now, we could easily turn those things back around the other way, couldn't we, men? Where we find things that we admire about our wife and say to her, ask her what makes her feel valued, respected, and valued the most. And then, of course, we can pray for them on a regular basis. But again, since today's Father's Day, that's advice for the women, but it's good for us to do for our wives too. And I still agree with shoot the kids, okay?
I'm not surprised.
All right, here's the last question. How many of you are new dads in here? You got a new dad, first-time dad. You're a new first-time dad. Anybody? You're a first-time dad. Anybody? First-time dad. Everybody here? You got multiple kids. Recently, nobody's a first-time dad.
Can someone pretend? Just raise their hand.
That's okay. We got one coming. He's not here today. He's one of our drummers on our worship team. He's also one of our executive financial board members, Brian Glaze. Brian and Stephanie have been married for, I think, about 18 years, what I've heard. And they're expecting their first child in December. So, Brian, you should be tuning in right now, listening to this online, and we're going to give you the best advice. What's the best advice you could give a new dad?
Honestly, I think to make sure you're their father and a teacher before you're their friend. I know that's cliche, but I really believe that, you know, it's tough to make sure you're providing discipline that will be good for them, right? I think that's the point, is that it will be good for them and that you can teach them the way that they go. But it's hard when you're looking into those little eyes, right? Those little innocent eyes when you're trying to discipline and stuff like that. But I think remember that I think our first objective, rather than trying to be their friend, is to be their father and their teacher.
I would say the advice I would give is start with me.
Go ahead. It's the worship team in the back, probably.
I got you. I would say the best advice is start from an early age. Don't try to, I'll get to the point, but try to start at an early age, establishing a set time where you teach or mentor or role model to them. And what I say is put a time aside where you make that and you purpose to have that time on a regular basis. Not a monthly thing or something like that, but try to do it on a daily basis, no less than a week. But don't try to just let it happen. Don't let it, because I've always been one that, hey, it's dynamic. I'll roll with, it'll happen when it happens. Try to make it a set time and do that all throughout their growing years, because that'll make a huge difference.
My advice would be accountability, and that would come in two forms. One, just always be accountable to your word. Whatever you say you're going to do, you better do it. And then the other part would be accountable for your time. So when you are going to set that time and you are going to spend time with your children, Make sure it's 100% undivided attention, put the phone down, and just be in that moment 100%. Be accountable for what you say you're going to do and for the time that you're going to spend with them.
Last thought for me was be involved. Put God first, but be involved with your children. There's plenty of time for your own games, but if you're not involved, if you're not participating, you're not guiding, you're not leading, it's going to be the biggest regrets in your life.
Yep, amen. I think for me, I think it would be, and there's lots of all these. I don't think we could rank any of these. All of these are good. For me, one thing to remember is love their mama. Love their mama, because you're teaching your boys how to treat women, how to respect them, and then you're treating your daughters what to look for in a mate. So love their mamas. All right, let's give these guys a hand.